The three heavens of the Bible, why does no one tell you about their true meaning? The three heavens of the Bible are among the most misunderstood mysteries ever spoken of, yet they were never meant to be hidden from you. For centuries, teachers have confined heaven to the clouds, promising it as a distant reward after death, but the scriptures whisper a deeper truth, that heaven is not a place you travel to, but a state of being you awaken to. When Paul said he was caught up into the third heaven, he was not describing a journey through the skies, but a rapture of consciousness, a shift from one realm of awareness into another. The Bible's heavens are levels of perception, layers of reality, dimensions of life unfolding within you now. The first heaven is what you see with your natural eyes, the visible world of forms and shadows. The second is the hidden realm where thought, imagination, and spirit create what is yet unseen. And the third is the divine union, the eternal oneness where separation dissolves and only God remains. Why does no one tell you this? Because if you knew, you would no longer wait for heaven to come. You would step into it here and now. And the moment you do, everything about your life changes forever. Heaven is consciousness, not geography. When you hear the word heaven, your mind has been conditioned to look upward, to imagine a realm beyond the clouds, a place of shining gates and golden streets where the faithful will enter after death. But the truth the Bible whispers is far more profound, far more immediate, far more daring. Heaven was never meant to be a distant location somewhere in the universe. Heaven is the unveiling of consciousness, the opening of inner eyes, the transformation of awareness that allows you to see beyond appearances and into the eternal. The very first error man makes is to separate God from himself, to confine divinity to the skies, when all along the Word has declared that the kingdom of God is within you. If heaven were merely geography, then the poorest soul on earth would be excluded until death, waiting for a promise that always hangs just out of reach. But if heaven is consciousness, then in this very moment, with no delay and no distance, you may enter it by shifting the seat of your awareness. This is the mystery that religion has often hidden, for it is easier to control man when he looks outward for what must be found within. Look closely at the words of Scripture. The heavens declare the glory of God. This declaration is not about stars shining in a distant sky, but about states of being that declare the nature of the eternal one in you. The first heaven is what you see with your senses, the outer world, the physical dimension where you rise, work, sleep, and move. It is the shallowest heaven, though beautiful, for it merely reflects the invisible processes of spirit. The second heaven lies within, in the realm of imagination, where the unseen is shaped, where prayers are born, and where visions move before they take on form. And the third heaven, which Paul testified he was caught into, is not a place at all but an experience, a union with God, the state of pure awareness where man and God are no longer two but one. To know this is to be liberated from the bondage of time and space, to realize that heaven is not postponed to some afterlife, but is accessible now to those who awaken to it. This is why Christ declared, "The kingdom of heaven is at hand." He did not say it was centuries away or worlds apart. He said it is at hand, meaning here, present, now. Heaven is as close as the shift of your thought, as near as the awakening of your heart, as immediate as the change of your perception. But why then, you may ask, has this truth been veiled? Why do so few speak of it openly? Because the moment man discovers that heaven is within, he is no longer dependent on outer authority. He no longer fears the threat of punishment nor waits for distant rewards, for he has discovered the true treasure within himself. When consciousness becomes your heaven, you begin to live differently. You realize that the world around you bends to the vision you hold, that your circumstances mirror the state of mind you inhabit, that the outer is nothing more than the echo of the inner. This is why some live in misery while others enjoy, though they breathe the same air and walk the same earth. One lives in the consciousness of lack, the other in the consciousness of abundance, and each lives in the heaven he has entered within. Heaven, then, is not promised to the dead, but given to the living, the awakened, the ones who dare to see beyond the veil of appearances. And when you enter it, even in this life, everything changes. the way you pray, the way you expect, the way you dream, the way you act. You no longer see yourself as a victim of fate, but as a participant in creation, for heaven opens your eyes to the truth that as within, so without. This is why Christ continually pointed man inward, saying, "The Father and I are one." He did not speak of a Father sitting on a throne in the skies, but of the indwelling Spirit, the source of consciousness itself, that you may awaken and know yourself as one with him. To live in heaven is not to escape earth, but to transform how you see it, for when you see rightly, earth becomes the mirror of heaven, and so, when you hear of the three heavens of the Bible, do not imagine ladders reaching into the stars or distant galaxies reserved for the holy. Instead, see them as degrees of awakening within your own soul. The first is the material consciousness where all men begin, the awareness of the senses. The second is the spiritual consciousness where faith, imagination, and inner sight shape the world before it is seen. And the third is divine consciousness, where the illusion of separation is shattered and only oneness remains. This truth has been hidden in plain sight, for those who read the scriptures with natural eyes miss it, but those who read with spiritual eyes awaken to it. When Paul spoke of being caught up into the third heaven, he said he heard things unspeakable, mysteries beyond the tongue, for how can mere words describe the state where all is one? And yet this heaven is not a reward after death, but a possibility now, for he said clearly that he did not know if he was in the body or out of the body when it occurred. In other words, it was not about leaving the flesh, but about entering a higher consciousness. Heaven, then, is consciousness, not geography, and this is the key that unlocks the mysteries of Scripture. For once you see this, every parable, every vision, every symbol opens before you like a map leading you inward. Jacob's ladder, with angels ascending and descending, is not a stairway into the skies, but the rising and falling of states within you, the ascent of awareness from the natural to the spiritual to the divine. John's vision of a new heaven and new earth is not about the destruction of the physical, but about the birth of a new consciousness that brings forth a new world. The throne of God is not a seat in the clouds, but the center of your being where divine authority rests. To awaken to this is to awaken to the truth that heaven is now here within, and the reason no one tells you this is because it demands that you take responsibility for your life. If heaven is only a place after death, you can endure misery now and hope for glory later. But if heaven is consciousness, then you must choose this day whom you will serve, the consciousness of fear or the consciousness of faith, the consciousness of separation or the consciousness of oneness. Every moment is the gateway, every thought a key, every feeling a step toward heaven or away from it. The invitation is always before you, the voice always whispering, "Behold, the kingdom of heaven is within you." The only question is, will you awaken to it? Will you dare to enter the heaven that is not promised tomorrow, but possible now? For when you do, you will discover the greatest truth of all, that heaven was never hidden, it was only waiting for you to open your eyes and see. The first heaven, the visible realm, the first heaven, as revealed in the Scriptures, is the heaven most men know, and yet the one most deeply misunderstood, for it is the realm of the visible, the external world of form, the material plane in which we live, breathe, and move. It is the heaven of the senses, the dimension your natural eyes behold every day, and yet though it seems solid, final, and unquestionable, it is but the shallowest expression of reality. It is the heaven of appearances, shadows cast by deeper lights, reflections of causes hidden from natural sight. To the unawakened man, this first heaven is the only heaven he knows, for he believes what he sees is all that is. He measures his life by outward things, his wealth, his body, his circumstances, his possessions, and he bows before the authority of appearances as though they were absolute. Yet Scripture reminds us, the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are unseen are eternal. This first heaven, then, is not the final dwelling of the soul, but the mirror of what is taking place in the invisible realm. It is the manifestation, the evidence, the harvest of seeds sown within. Just as the earth displays the growth of plants whose roots lie hidden beneath the soil, so the visible heaven reveals the fruit of inner states and unseen causes. You must understand this if you are ever to progress beyond the surface of life, for until you see the first heaven rightly, you will live in bondage to it, fearing it, worshipping it, obeying it as though it were the master rather than the servant. The first heaven shows you your present consciousness, and it does so with unwavering honesty. If you dwell in fear, your world will reflect fear. If you dwell in lack, your world will show lack. If you dwell in love and faith, your world will blossom with opportunity and provision. The outer is but the echo of the inner, and the first heaven exists as the great reflector of what you have believed and accepted as true. This is why so many live in despair, for they take the first heaven as final, never realizing it is but a stage in the unfolding of their journey. They see sickness, and they declare themselves condemned. They see poverty, and they declare themselves hopeless. They see failure, and they declare themselves cursed. But they do not know that the first heaven is only reporting back to them the state they have lived in, the consciousness they have fed, the inner realm they have neglected. And so they remain trapped in a cycle of appearances, never daring to lift their eyes inward to the second heaven where the unseen causes reside. Yet when you awaken, you realize the first heaven is not a prison but a message, a mirror, a faithful servant showing you the state you carry within. Instead of cursing it, you learn to read it. Instead of fearing it, you learn to understand it. Every outward circumstance is a parable written in matter, declaring to you the truth of your inner condition. And so, when you see discord in the first heaven, you do not despair, but you know that something within must shift. When you see blessing in the first heaven, you rejoice, knowing it is the fruit of faith, love, and imagination sown in the unseen. This is why the first heaven is both a gift and a test, for it shows you yourself without disguise. And yet, if you cling to it as the ultimate reality, you will forever wander in confusion, never rising higher. The first heaven is the realm of effects, but man has mistaken it for the realm of cause. He has bowed before the evidence of his senses, forgetting that the senses only report, they do not create. They are mirrors, not masters. And so the Scriptures continually remind us to walk by faith, not by sight. For to live bound to the first heaven is to remain in bondage to appearances, but to rise above it is to step into the creative power of the second and third heavens. Understand, then, that the first heaven is the schoolroom of the soul. It teaches you responsibility. It teaches you awareness. It teaches you that you cannot escape the law of sowing and reaping. It teaches you that life is not random, that nothing just happens. But everything is the manifestation of unseen causes. If you have eyes to see, you will begin to read your outer world as a map of your inner life. The relationships you attract, the conditions you live under, the opportunities that rise or fall before you, these are the outpicturing of the states you have entertained within. The world is consciousness objectified, and the first heaven is where this truth is most evident. It is here that you begin to learn mastery, for if you can see the first heaven for what it is, you will no longer be deceived by appearances. You will look beyond sickness to the health that may yet be claimed, beyond poverty to the abundance waiting to be accepted, beyond fear to the love that already surrounds you. You will no longer be enslaved to what the senses report, but you will use the report to discern the unseen state from which it flows. In this way, the first heaven ceases to be a chain and becomes a compass, pointing you toward the higher realms of consciousness. Yet here lies the great tragedy. Many never rise beyond the first heaven. They live and die worshipping appearances, chasing shadows, measuring their worth by what can be touched and seen. They live as beggars though infinite wealth lies within them, as prisoners though the door has always been open, as orphans though they are sons and daughters of God. They take the first heaven as final and thus miss the glory of the journey. But you who hear these words are called higher, for the first heaven is only the beginning. It is not given to condemn you but to awaken you. It is the alarm clock of the soul, ringing loudly through circumstances, urging you to rise and seek the deeper realms. The storms of life, the hardships, the frustrations, they are not curses but signals, reminding you that the outer must change when the inner changes. You are not bound to the report of the senses. You are the one who gives the senses their report. The first heaven is not the end of the story but the opening chapter, and if you dare to see it rightly, you will use it as the stepping stone to greater things, for every effect you see now has its cause in the unseen, and the moment you shift the unseen, the seen must follow. This is the mystery hidden in plain sight, the mystery of the first heaven, the mystery that no one tells you because they would rather you remain dependent on outer powers than awaken to the truth of your own. But you cannot unknow what you now know. The first heaven is not the final heaven. It is the reflection of your own consciousness, a mirror held before your face, showing you the state you live in. And when you grasp this, you will cease to fear it, you will cease to worship it, and you will cease to be deceived by it. Instead, you will rise, you will take responsibility for the unseen states you entertain, and you will know that the visible realm is nothing more than the echo of the invisible. The first heaven is beautiful, but it is only the beginning. The second heaven, the inner world of imagination, the second heaven, is the realm no eye of flesh can behold, and yet it is more real than the world of stone and steel that surrounds you. It is the inner world of imagination, the dimension of spirit where invisible seeds are planted, and where the unseen silently shapes the seen. To the man who lives only in the first heaven, imagination is dismissed as fantasy, a playground of thoughts with no power to alter reality. But to the awakened, imagination is the womb of creation, the workshop of God, the place where all things begin. Everything you see in the outer world once lived first in the inner world, for nothing appears in the visible without first being conceived in the invisible. The house you dwell in was once a vision in the mind of an architect. The music you cherish was once a melody heard only in the silence of a composer's heart. The inventions that transform your daily life were once pictures and ideas no eye could see, yet they were real enough to guide the hand of man until they took form. This is the mystery of the second heaven. It is the realm of causation, while the first heaven is the realm of effect. When Paul declared that what is seen is temporal and what is unseen is eternal, he was not speaking of some far-off world, but of this dimension within you, where thought, faith, imagination, and inner sight build realities that the natural eye cannot yet behold. Here is where prayer truly works, for prayer is not pleading with an external deity, but aligning the inner world with the truth of what you desire to see. To pray is to enter the second heaven and impress upon it the vision of what you seek, knowing that in time the outer world must reflect it. For the outer is powerless to resist the inner, it can only echo what is impressed upon it. This is why Christ taught, when you pray, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. He was pointing you to the second heaven, instructing you not to wait for visible proof, but to dwell in the unseen reality until it takes shape. The second heaven is the realm of faith, and faith is not blind, it is the vision of the unseen. Faith sees what the senses deny. Faith holds fast to what the outer world rejects. Faith dwells in the second heaven, and knows it is more substantial than the first. This is why the prophets spoke of visions and dreams, for they knew that the invisible realm is not fantasy but the matrix of creation. Joseph dreamed and nations were preserved. Daniel saw visions and kings were humbled. John on the Isle of Patmos was caught into the second heaven, where he saw symbols and mysteries that still unfold to this day. Do not despise your imagination, for it is the sacred gift through which you touch the second heaven. It is the eye of the soul, the channel of creation, the bridge between the seen and unseen. What you hold there with persistence will crystallize in the first heaven, for the second heaven is the mold from which the outer is cast. Yet many do not know this, and so they misuse imagination. They fill the second heaven with fear, worry, anger, and despair, and then they wonder why their outer world reflects the same. They imagine sickness and then fall ill. They dwell on lack and then face poverty. They rehearse failure in their mind until it greets them in life. The second heaven is neutral. It does not judge. It simply reflects back to you what you impress upon it. This is the law hidden in plain sight, as within, so without. And once you understand it, you become the master of your destiny, for you no longer wait on outer things to change, but you go inward and change the cause. The second heaven is also where revelation is received, for here the Spirit speaks in pictures, in impressions, in dreams that transcend the intellect. The voice of God is not always heard in thunder, but often in the silent image impressed upon your imagination, guiding you, warning you, preparing you for what is to come. When Paul said he was caught up into the third heaven, he first passed through this second, for only through imagination can the soul ascend higher. This is the ladder Jacob saw in his dream, angels ascending and descending, visions rising from earth into heaven, and heaven pouring itself into earth. The second heaven is the traffic of eternity, the meeting ground of the divine and the human. Here ideas flow, here guidance is given, here prayers are answered before they are seen. If you wish to transform your life, you must learn to dwell in this second heaven consciously. You must learn to withdraw from the noise of the senses and enter the silence of imagination, for there is where power lies. Close your eyes and picture the life you seek, not as something distant, but as though it were here now. Feel it, taste it, touch it in the realm of imagination. Let it live in you until it becomes more real than what your senses deny. Do this faithfully, and in time the first heaven will echo it, for the outer cannot resist the inner. This is the way of transformation, the secret known by the mystics, but hidden from the masses. The second heaven is also the realm of warfare, for here thoughts battle, here fears contend with faith, here doubt seeks to overthrow vision. The enemy does not attack your outer world first. He attacks your imagination. He whispers lies. He paints images of defeat. He floods your mind with fear. If he can capture your second heaven, he will rule your first, for the outer is only the reflection of the inner. This is why you are told to cast down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Guard your second heaven, for it is the treasure house of your destiny. Do not allow it to be polluted with images of despair, but fill it with visions of hope, faith, love, and power. When you rise each morning, before you look at the world, enter the second heaven, see your day as you desire it to unfold. Feel the joy, the peace, the abundance. Walk through it inwardly before you walk through it outwardly, and you will find the outer aligns with the inner. At night, before you sleep, enter again. Release the failures of the day and dwell in the vision of your desire. Sleep in the second heaven, and you will rise into a new first heaven. This is the secret to prayer without ceasing, not endless words, but continual dwelling in the unseen reality. The second heaven is always open, always waiting, always shaping the life you live. The only question is, what will you put there? For whatever you hold in imagination long enough, with faith and feeling, must one day appear in the outer. The world is imagination outpictured, and the second heaven is where the script of your life is written. If you would change the play, change the script. If you would alter the scene, alter the vision, for the unseen governs the scene, and the inner creates the outer. This is the power given to you from the beginning, the divine gift of imagination, the key to the second heaven. And so I tell you, do not despise what your inner eye beholds. Do not dismiss imagination as idle fancy, for it is the most sacred faculty you possess. Use it wisely, guard it carefully, honor it daily, and it will lead you upward into the mysteries of the third heaven, where union with God is known. For now, understand this, the second heaven is real, it is within you, and it is shaping your world even now. Choose this day what you will hold in it, and tomorrow you shall see its reflection. The third heaven, union with the divine, the third heaven, is the highest mystery spoken of in Scripture, the place where man and God are no longer seen as two, but as one. It is not a location that you will one day travel to in the sky, nor a realm beyond the stars, but a state of being, an experience of consciousness so exalted that words struggle to describe it. Paul testified that he was caught up into the third heaven and heard unspeakable things, things beyond the power of language, for how can human words contain the infinite? This third heaven is the state of union with the divine, where separation dissolves, where all striving ceases, and where you know by direct experience that you and the eternal are not divided but forever joined. It is here that the soul discovers the fullness of its true identity. It is here that the search ends, the questions are silenced, and the restless wandering of man's heart finds its home. To the natural man, the third heaven is a mystery, for he sees God as distant, external, enthroned above creation. He imagines himself small, weak, and unworthy, forever hoping to draw near, but never quite arriving. Yet the third heaven unveils the secret that the throne of God is within, that the Spirit of the Almighty is the very life of your own being, that the I am spoken of in Scripture is the eternal essence of who you are. To enter this heaven is not to travel outward, but to awaken inward, to recognize that the separation you feared was only a veil of perception. When that veil lifts, you see what has always been true, that the Father and you are one. This is why Christ prayed that they may be one, even as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us. The third heaven is the fulfillment of that prayer. It is the state where you no longer call upon God as though he were far away, but where you know him as the very core of your own existence. In the first heaven, man bows before appearances. In the second, he learns to shape reality through imagination and faith. But in the third, he awakens to the truth that there is no other, no gap to bridge, no distance to travel, only the eternal oneness that has been true from the beginning. This is why Paul could say, "It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me." He was not speaking of possession by another, but of the realization that his own life was the life of God expressed, that his own being was a vessel through which the divine revealed himself. The third heaven is not about gaining something new, but about remembering what has always been. It is not about becoming divine, but about realizing you already are. It is the awakening from the dream of separation, the unveiling of the eternal truth hidden behind the veil of appearances. Here is where fear dies, for how can you fear when you know yourself one with the source? Here is where striving ceases, for how can you strive for what you already are? Here is where love overflows, for how can you be one with God and not radiate the essence of his being? The third heaven is not reserved for death. It is possible now in this life for those who awaken to it. When Paul said he did not know whether he was in the body or out of the body when he was caught up, he was pointing to the fact that the third heaven is not about escaping flesh, but about transcending perception. It is a shift in consciousness so profound that you no longer identify yourself as merely a body, a name, a history, but as spirit itself, eternal and unbound. This state cannot be forced by effort, for it is a gift of grace, yet it is a gift always present, waiting only for recognition. It is revealed in silence, in surrender, in the stillness where the self is dissolved and only God remains. Those who have touched it cannot fully explain it, for words break under its weight. They can only testify with trembling lips, I and the Father are one. The third heaven is the holy of holies within your own being, the innermost chamber where God dwells in unbroken union with you. And yet, though it is the highest heaven, it is not distant. It is closer than breath, nearer than thought, hidden in plain sight within you. The tragedy is that most live their lives never tasting it, never turning inward long enough to see beyond the veil. They cling to religion as ritual, to doctrine as comfort, to outward forms as substitutes, when the reality they seek is already within. But for those who dare to awaken, the third heaven opens, and once entered, it transforms everything. You no longer see others as strangers, for in union you recognize yourself in all. You no longer fear death, for you know life cannot end. You no longer live in lack, for you know the source is within you. The outer world may rise and fall, but in the third heaven you rest unshaken, for your foundation is eternity itself. And though this state is beyond words, symbols point to it. Jacob's ladder culminates in it, the temple's holy of holies represents it, the transfiguration upon the mount foreshadows it, the new Jerusalem descending from heaven is its picture, for it is not a city of stone, but the consciousness of oneness with God. When John saw no temple in that city, it was because God himself was the temple, and man dwelt in him. This is the third heaven. To live in this heaven is not to escape the world, but to see it rightly, to walk in it as one awakened, to love in it as one who knows union, to serve in it as one who knows there is no other. It is to live in the world, but not of it, for you know your being flows from a higher source. Yet the third heaven cannot be grasped by intellect. It must be experienced. It is tasted in moments of deep stillness, when the chatter of mind falls silent and you feel the vastness of eternity within. It is glimpsed in moments of pure love, when you lose yourself in the joy of giving and discover that the giver and the receiver are one. It is unveiled in moments of surrender, when you release control and find that the divine has been carrying you all along. These are the doorways into the third heaven, and once entered, you will never be the same, for you will know that heaven was never distant, never delayed, never withheld. It was always within you, waiting for you to awaken. The third heaven is not promised after death, but offered now. It is not for the few, but for all who will see, and when you enter it, even for a moment, you know the truth of the words, "In him we live and move and have our being." You see that God is not outside, but the very substance of your life, the ground of your being, the breath within your breath. You see that the journey was never to a distant heaven, but to the recognition of the heaven within. And once you see, you can never unsee. This is the third heaven, the crown of consciousness, the union with the divine where separation ends and only God remains. Why few speak of their true meaning? Why is it that the three heavens of the Bible, though written plainly within its pages, remain veiled to most, hidden behind layers of tradition, ritual, and doctrine? Why is it that so many are taught to see heaven only as a distant place of reward after death, while the scriptures cry out that the kingdom is within, at hand, available now? The answer lies in the nature of man, and in the systems of religion that have sought to comfort him while keeping him dependent. It is easier to tell the masses that heaven awaits them beyond the grave than to awaken them to the truth that they carry heaven within themselves, for to tell them this truth would strip away the authority of outward structures and place the responsibility squarely upon their own consciousness. If heaven is only a future place, then man can be controlled by fear of losing it or by hope of earning it. He can be told what rituals to perform, what doctrines to accept, what leaders to follow, and he will comply, believing his eternal fate hangs in the balance. But if heaven is revealed as consciousness, if the three heavens are understood as dimensions of awareness unfolding within, then no priest, no institution, no outward mediator is needed, for the journey becomes inward, personal, direct. This truth threatens the power of those who profit from man's ignorance, and so it is seldom spoken, seldom preached, seldom taught. Instead, heaven is painted as distant, delayed, reserved for later, while man is left wandering in the shadows of the first heaven, blind to the light within. Yet the scriptures themselves reveal the mystery to any who read with spiritual eyes. Christ declared plainly, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." Paul testified of being caught up into the third heaven. John spoke of a new heaven and new earth descending, not of men ascending. Again and again the truth shines forth, but it is veiled by interpretation, buried beneath dogma, hidden under centuries of tradition. Few speak of their true meaning because to do so would awaken men to their divine inheritance now, and an awakened man cannot be manipulated, cannot be enslaved, cannot be bound by fear. An awakened man no longer waits for heaven but creates it, no longer begs for salvation but realizes union with God within. This is a dangerous truth to those who wish to control, but it is the liberating truth to those who dare to hear. The heavens are not far away but within, unfolding from the visible to the invisible to the eternal. The first heaven is the outer world, the second is the inner realm of imagination, and the third is union with God. This is the journey every soul is called to make, yet most are never told it is possible. Instead, they are lulled into waiting, hoping, dreaming of a heaven to come while living in despair now. And so their power remains dormant, their birthright unused, their lives spent chasing what could be awakened in an instant. Few speak of the true meaning because it demands responsibility. If heaven is within, then you are the one who must awaken to it. No one can do it for you. No ritual, no ceremony, no outward act can replace the inner awakening. This frightens many, for it strips away excuses, it removes the comfort of delay, it places the weight of choice upon your own soul. You must decide this day whom you will serve, the consciousness of fear or the consciousness of faith, the illusion of separation or the truth of oneness. Many prefer to remain asleep, to believe that one day, someday, heaven will arrive, rather than to face the discipline of awakening now. But the truth is merciful even in its demand, for it promises that the door is always open, the kingdom always near, the heavens always within reach. Few speak of their true meaning because it cannot be controlled, cannot be packaged, cannot be sold. When a man discovers that heaven is within, he becomes free, free from fear, free from manipulation, free from the tyranny of appearances. He discovers that he can live in abundance, in peace, in love, not because of outward conditions, but because of inner states. He discovers that the world reflects his consciousness, that prayer is answered in imagination before it is seen in form, that union with God is not a promise for tomorrow, but a reality now. This kind of freedom frightens those who would prefer man to remain in bondage, and so the truth is seldom spoken, yet the Spirit has never ceased to whisper it, never ceased to reveal it to those who seek with open hearts. For every age has had its witnesses, those who saw beyond the veil, those who testified that heaven is not far but near, not later but now. They were mocked, rejected, often silenced, but their words remain, echoing across time for those with ears to hear. The question is not whether the truth is available, the question is whether you will receive it. Will you continue to believe heaven is a reward postponed, or will you awaken to the reality that it is a state of consciousness present within you now? Few speak of the true meaning, but you need not wait for another voice to tell you, for the witness is within you. Your own experience testifies. Have you not seen how imagination shapes your world? Have you not tasted moments of union, glimpses of eternity, when love lifted you beyond yourself and you felt the presence of something greater? Have you not felt in prayer or silence the stillness that reveals you are more than flesh and blood, that you are spirit, eternal, divine? These are glimpses of the heavens within, and they call you higher. Do not dismiss them, do not suppress them, for they are the signposts leading you to the fullness of the journey. The first heaven shows you appearances, the second teaches you creation, and the third reveals union. This is the path, this is the truth, this is the life, and though few will speak it, though many will veil it, it remains for you to discover. The veil is torn, the door is open, the invitation is given. The true meaning of the heavens is not to comfort you with promises of tomorrow, but to awaken you to transformation today. And when you awaken, you will understand why so few dare to teach it, because a man who knows heaven is within can never again be controlled. He becomes fearless, for he knows death cannot end him. He becomes joyful, for he knows lack cannot bind him. He becomes loving, for he knows all are one in the divine. He becomes free, for he knows the kingdom is his now. This is the secret, this is the reason, this is why the heavens are hidden from the many, but revealed to the few who seek with open eyes. And now that you know, you are without excuse. You have heard the call, you have seen the truth, you have felt the whisper. The question remains, will you remain in the first heaven bound to appearances? Will you linger in the second, shaping but never awakening? Or will you rise into the third, the union with the divine where all separation ends? Few speak of their true meaning, but you have been told, the rest is yours to decide.